Okay, so in each of these exercises 5 through 9, you should have found that the rotated line, when it's rotated around the origin 180 degrees, the rotated line is parallel to the original line. So let's look at how we can show that. There's different ways. There's not just one right way to do this. But I'm going to pick a point on this line L. It's going through the point 0, 2, but I'm going to pick this point -2, +2, this point here. The image of this point, this is -2, 2. The image of that point is going to be the opposite of both of those. So it's got to be at 2, -2. So I know that my line's going to go through that point. And I could even do that again. I could pick the point 2, 2 here. And the image -2, -2 would have to be on this line. So I can actually just directly draw my line now because I have two of the points. So there is the rotated image. And I used what I knew about coordinates of rotated points when they're rotated 180 degrees. So here's my rotation of L, and they are parallel. These 2 points are parallel because the distances to the x-axis are always going to be the same for all of those points. Okay, so they will never intersect in that case. All right, so let's look at this one. This is a vertical line. I can use, let's use a different technique this time. Let's pick a point -4, -2. Draw my line through the origin. To find the image of that point. I can use my transparency to rotate. So there's different methods that you could use to do this, making use of what we know. There's my line, my point of rotation, and I know that this point is going to have to lie on this line somewhere. It has to be collinear. So I'm going to just rotate until that point matches up to the line. I'm getting there. And there it is right there. And then I could draw the line. I could have predicted the coordinates of this point because this point, and it's right here. So there's my point on the line. And I can see from my transparency that this is the line it goes through. So the coordinates of this point were -4, -2. So the reflected or the rotated point would be 4, 2, +4, +2. These two lines are parallel, the rotated line and the original line. Okay, that's 5 and 6. Let's look at exercise 7. Exercise 7 again is, let's see, same rotation, 180 degrees around the origin. Let's let line L be a line passing through 0, -1 and parallel to the x-axis. So here's that point, 0, -1. Here's my parallel line. Let's use a couple points here and rotate them. -1, -1 is going to rotate up here to +1, +1. And let's do another one. Let's just pick, we can pick any point we want. Let's pick this point on the line. 3, -1. Its rotation is going to be -3, +1. Right there. So I can draw my line once again. I could have used the transparency to do this. Could have used the fact that a point and its image around a rotation are collinear. So that would have shown me where that point was as well. Okay, but here's my rotation of L. It's right here, and it is parallel to L. So yes, they are parallel once again. Okay, let's look at this one. This one might have caused a little bit more difficulty, but we're going to solve it exactly the same way. So I've got my line L here. Line L is line L parallel to its rotation? Use your transparency if needed. We'll use our transparency on this one, but before we do that, let's find some points here. So here's my center of rotation. Let's look at this point. I'm going to pick some points that lie on grid lines. That point there. Its rotated point, the image is going to have to be on this same line with O. So let's draw that line. Like so. See how I did? I'm a little bit off. You have to be pretty accurate when you draw these lines on the grid. Get my pencil really sharp. Make sure I'm lined up just perfectly. Okay. Might be a little better. All right, so I'm going to use my transparency, and I've drawn a point here. Let's look at this. I have my center of rotation. Don't get confused about which line is which. This is the line we're rotating right here, line L. And here's the point on that line that I know is going to have to be collinear here. It's got to be this same distance from the origin, but somewhere down this line. So as we go, our rotation of 180 degrees, like so, all the way around. I keep going until this point crosses that line. And there's my rotated line. It's going through this point, and it kind of goes here and down. So what do you think? Does it look parallel? And I didn't draw it very straight, but does it look parallel to the original line? And it is parallel. Let's find another point where it crosses a grid line. Let's rotate this point. The coordinates of this point would be 3, -2. So the rotated point would be -3, +2. So let's look at that. -3, +2 would be on the line right there. So that would help me draw it a little bit straighter right here. So there's my line. So this is the rotation, the rotated line, and the original line, and they are indeed parallel. So rotation about the origin of L is parallel to line L. Okay, so exercise 9 has you do the same exercise without grid lines. So, but let's go ahead and use the same method that we've been using. I'm going to pick a point on line L, draw my line through the origin, through the center of rotation, O. And I know that my rotated line, or my rotated point here has to be on this line. And it's going to be the same distance. It's going to be over here somewhere. So I'm going to use my transparency to draw this. So here we go. Here's my center of rotation. Here's my point on a line. And I'm going to draw the line. Okay. Now I'm going to rotate around the center of rotation. So I'm going to keep this point anchored and go 180 degrees. And I know I've gone 180 degrees when this point lies on this line somewhere. All right, there I am. So now they match up. So there is my rotated, whoops. There's my rotated point. You know, let me label these. There's P and P prime. So P prime is a point on my line. And now I can just trace my line here. You can see they look parallel, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this one more time with a different point, and we'll make sure that this is accurate. This is a bit tricky, so if you're a little confused, don't worry. Let's call this point Q. I'm going to draw a line from Q through the origin. Draw it lightly like that. So I know that Q prime is going to have to be on this line, because Q and the origin and Q prime have to line up in a rotation of 180 degrees. So I'm going to rotate one more point here. We're going to do this to find Q prime. All right, and I'm not even going to draw the whole line because I'm just trying to find the rotation of Q. So here we go, 180 degrees, keeping the origin anchored and then matching it up here. And there they cross. So I'm going to mark point Q prime. There's Q prime. So now I know that this line has to go through both of these points because they're both rotated points from that line. So there's my rotation of L. Is right there. So we can see they're it's a little wonky maybe, but we can see that these two lines are parallel by rotating them around the origin. Okay, rotations are require you to do a little thinking here because the points don't end up, it's not like a reflection where they end up just opposite each other. They're going around the circle. So they end up on opposite sides of the circle when we're rotating this 180 degrees. But we've shown that in exercises 5 through 9, that when I rotate a line, I get a line that's parallel to the original line.